All set? Alrighty. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The meeting is called to order. My name is Tara Carr. I'm the first Select Woman of Brookfield, here with Selectman Harry Shaker and Selectman Steve Dunn. We have our town attorney present and our finance director this evening. We'll move straight to public comment.
Oh, all right. First person, Joseph Piscatelli?
Yes. Do I stand there or?
Go right down to
Up to the mic.
Hi, my name is Joseph Piscatelli. I live in Brookfield, Connecticut. I have,
Oh, yeah, you have to, oh,
I think it's on, sir. You may just have to bring it closer.
I'll say it again. Hi, my name is Joseph Piscatelli. I live in the town of Brookfield. I oppose the construction of this cell tower located at 60 Bell Road. My home on Brookfield Drive is on a mountain. The elevation is 380 feet above sea level. The proposed tower on 60 Bell Road elevation is 280 feet. I'm 100 feet taller. I'm 100 feet higher. And the tower is supposed to be 165 feet tall. If you take the cells that it's supposed to be installed on here, and they're supposed to be in 20-foot increments, I think it's the three carriers, it's going to be direct path of my house.
Mm-hmm.
The microwave antenna is going to be pointing right at me. There are a number of homes on my block. There's 13 homes on my block. There are homes and businesses off of Vale Road. Some of the businesses are 140 feet away. Some are 270 feet away. And some homes on Park Lane are less than 1,000 feet away. On the FCC website, there is a number of letters submitting to doctors and medical groups. Here's a paragraph of one. A mounting body of published studies associated radio frequency radiation with adverse negative effects. The FCC limits the needs to strengthen to protect the public, especially children and vulnerable population, from long-term exposure. Again, I oppose this.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. John Bolton?
I'd just like to remind everyone that you have 3 minutes, and so if you get too far over, we'll let you know, and just please wrap up. Thank you. I meant to say that before you, Joan.
Okay. I didn't hear it because I forgot my hearing aids. I'm Joan Polson, 16 Twilight Lane, Brookfield. I want to talk about the cell tower as well. I'm going to address this particularly related to the emergency personnel in our town who are saying that they need this tower to upgrade their equipment. I'm sure everyone in our town wants our emergency responders to have the best updated equipment available to do their essential and crucial job. I count myself among them. Our question is, can we find a way to upgrade the system without adding a huge new cell tower to our town? Could the antenna needed be put on an existing tower? Are there any other optional ways to accomplish this goal? It appears from my limited knowledge that the consultant who communicated with our police and firefighters they have the impression that this new cell tower is necessary for their upgrade for the emergency communication network. I would like to know if this consultant could possibly have had any conflict of interest. Do we know if he's affiliated with the telecom industry? I don't think that's an unreasonable question. It is possible that it is not necessary to build a cell tower to accommodate the emergency personnel, and that tower will have multiple antennas and emit uncontrolled levels of radiation. We know definitely that the radiation emitted from cell towers is harmful. I sent a link to the Siting Council listing over 70 studies of harmful effects experienced by people who live in neighborhoods near cell towers, and that's in very specific body of research. I'm going to skip the rest because I think the previous speaker addressed the effects on children, and we've heard all that a lot of times. I know that our emergency services and our police and firefighters are here to serve, protect, and aid the people of Brookfield. They deserve our respect, appreciation, and support. The same commitments to the protection and welfare of our citizens could also be considered a pledge to do no harm. I am asking our town government and emergency responders to look for a better way, a safer way to accomplish their goals. And as an afternote, I just heard from Pasca, who is a person who's involved with what we're talking about, and very knowledgeable. And she's from Easton, and she said that the Easton Fire Department upgraded their analog Motorola equipment to digital cell, and are saying that the service is terrible. The staff at the fire department suggested that Brookfield first responders contact the chief, the fire chief, to hear about their experience. And in quotes, they put a tower near a school and it has not helped. And
Joe,
I
can
have
you
the name and
just
address
wrap
of
up,
the
please?
fire chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Rich Saluga?
Good evening. Let me first apologize. First of all, my name is Rich Saluga. I'm 32 Great Heron Lane, which is in Newbury Village. Let me first apologize. I won't be able to stay for the meeting, but I wanted to come and share some comments. First question I had about the Greenway, you had a public hearing October 20th, and you know from my correspondence I was out of town. Is that the video of that public hearing available and accessible in any way?
Yes,
How would one do that?
we'll give you the information after the meeting, if that's okay.
Okay, I'll contact
It's on
Ginny then
YouTube.
tomorrow. All right. One of the things that I heard from some of my neighbors, I was happy to hear that many of my neighbors, both not only in Newbury Village but in Riverview, attended the meeting and shared their concern and their opposition to having the Greenway go through our property. What was disappointing is that the Greenway Committee had a meeting a couple of days later. It's not even mentioned in their minutes. They thought it necessary to mention in the meeting that nobody from Laurel Hill attended the meeting, but they said nothing about Newbury and Riverview. And this is one of the concerns we've had with this particular committee for the last several years. We've been asking them to have meetings with us to share our concerns. They'll tell us, yeah, we're going to have a meeting, and then they don't set up anything. We know that obviously COVID happened, so that cut into the opportunity to have meetings, but we've had opportunities, and they've met before, and they just don't respond. And the fact that their minutes reflect that they don't even talk about the opposition that was raised in the public hearing is really disconcerting to me. The other question I would have is, on your agenda, you're talking about a recommended action regarding option 4. And my understanding is there were 3 options that were presented at the public hearing. So I don't know what option 4 is. I looked through your agenda or packet, and it says something about Federal Road, Newbury Village, where it terminates and then going to the New Milford line, but there's no explanation of what that is. So it's hard to comment on whether you should push that or not push that, because we don't know what it is. So we'd appreciate some clarification on that. One other item that I'd like to comment on, and I'll just leave this with you. It's obvious from the packet that the Center School Repurposing Committee did a lot of work, and I applaud them on that. I would just like to ask the Board of Selectmen, and as well as the Board of Finance and other town officials, to remember that when we had a vote several years ago on a new library, it wasn't just the location that was a problem. biggest problem I heard from a number of residents in town, and this vote went down, you know, like almost 2/3 of the town voted against it, was its cost and its size. At that time, the size was 35,000 square feet, and the cost was $15 million. This proposal talks about a 40,000 square foot library at a cost of $15 to $20 million. And I just think in this economic climate, this is a, you know, I'm all for looking at changing the library, expanding the library, but I think in this economic climate, this
Rich,
is
can
an
you wrap
item-
it up?
This is an item that should be tabled.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Gwen Allman.
Hi, my name is Gwen Arment, 62 Indian Trail. I'm just going to do, going to talk about the cell tower as well as I did before. And just a few comments that I made to the Connecticut Siting Council regarding the 60 Vale Road Homeland Towers AT&T application. First of all, the applicant has to prove that a significant gap in wireless services in Brookfield exists. In fact, the applicant must prove that a specific carrier has a significant gap in personal wireless services at a specific location where they want to put a tower. Number two, they have to prove that their proposed installation on the site, on the specific section of the site, and on the specific height is the only feasible means to rem the gap. On September 24th of this year, up until November 2nd, I, with a group of residents using a professional spectrum analyzer Wilson ProCell line Q meter, measured all existing wireless carrier frequencies in various parts of Brookfield to determine wireless communication service, as well as radiation emitted by Brookfield cell towers, all of which registered in the extreme hazardous box of the chart. Results of our findings have been sent to Kinetic CT Siting for public record. 60 Vale Road was one of our stops, so was Verizon, so was the new school. We found that the signals were quite good and there was no significant gap in any personal wireless service. Verizon was the strongest. In addition, there are already 4 towers in Brookfield. One existing tower would be less than a mile from the 60 Vale Road site. According to Brookfield zoning regulations, towers must be at least 1 mile apart. Therefore, if better communication between first responders and Brookfield locations is needed, Verizon should be the wireless provider for them rather than the installation of yet another cell tower. According to the 1996 Telecommunications Act and Second Circuit case law, you should see the July 2022 ruling in Flower Hill, New York. If there is no significant gap in wireless communication service, the town can say no. So I would recommend that the selectmen deny the application and propose a moratorium on any new wireless towers in Brookfield. Thank you.
Greg Sesteri.
Craig Cesari, I live at 12 West Wiskadee Road in Brookfield. And I'm opposed to the cell tower also. The reason being is my home is going to be in direct line of the radiation pattern of that cell tower, plus many other homes in that area, and also the school, West Wiskadee Road, the middle school there. And I don't think that's right. I wasn't able to prepare for this. I'm an engineer, electrical engineer, and I add a lot more to this, but I haven't had the opportunity to research it more. I was wondering if we could get some kind of information as to the power and the radiation levels that they're expecting at different points in the town from this new tower. And I don't believe there's actually a need for another tower in this town. Plus, the 5G is much higher power output than standard 4G. So we're going to be radiated by this higher power level all the time. And I'd like to remind everybody here that back in the 80s and 90s, the U.S. Moscow embassy, the people in that became very, very ill, and several of them died due to radiation, the microwave radiation that the Russians were beaming at that embassy. You look that up, too. I'm sure there's more information on this from the FCC and other governing bodies as far as any studies that have been done on this particular type of radiation. And I really think we should wait quite a while and investigate much further on any of this, and even existing towers. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I do. Tara Carr.
Good evening. My name is Tara Carr. I reside at 54 Indian Trail, and I cannot refrain from speaking tonight. I happened to go home at 6 o'clock to grab a bite to eat, which didn't end up happening because I walked in and both of my children came running over to me and said, "Mom, we took this weird survey in school today." And I said, "Well, tell me a little bit more. What was the survey?" Mind you, my children are 11 and 13. And they said they were asked 100 questions. They were all to sit down in a certain period of the day, and everybody in the school, I think 7th and 8th graders, were pulled out a laptop and had to do this online survey asking questions about making love, masturbation, drinking and driving, vaping, drugs, alcohol. I took some screenshots of her computer. She pulled it up on her laptop, clicked on the link. This is what our children are being asked to do in school. And I want the public to know, because I don't think parents at home know what their kids were asked to do in school today. It's disgusting. Thank you.
Not,
There's no questions, sir.
well, you'd have to get up. Yep. Just your name and address. No, I mean.
Sabina Scherner, and I'm from Sherman. And I'm here to support Tara and my friends here with the cell tower, and very much against it. And I don't have to repeat all that, but I really appreciate Tara, and everyone here should. She's wonderful. I wish I had someone like you. So that is very important. What you said, that's happening in our schools. People need to know everything that they're doing today in our schools. Critical race theory, this gender confusion, it's just horrendous what's happening. And people really do need to know what's happening. And I applaud you, Tara, because we need more people like you.
That's it for comment? I'd like to make a comment. I spent 14 years on the Board of Education. In my 10th or 11th year, we found out that we were using, as a general read, the third highest, most banned book by the American Library Association in high school libraries. Not one person on the Board of Ed knew. To my knowledge, none of the administration knows. One of my biggest problems with putting my three kids through school was we basically had very little knowledge of what went on and how it went on. There were R-rated movies that were shown. Now, a note is supposed to go home to the teachers, or excuse me, home to the parents. Most parents don't know what these books are about, or what certain, you have to research it. And I feel as a parent, you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to trust your educational process. I can't tell you the number of times I tried to ask the Board of Ed not to ban this book, not to not use it, to simply evaluate the literature that we're using to make sure it's age appropriate. That failed 6-1. I couldn't even get the Board of Ed, Republicans on the Board of Ed, to say, let's just evaluate. My son came up to me, it was 10 o'clock at night, and it was about a movie that they were showing. It was a Roman Polanski movie on Macbeth. There was partial nudity. There was language. Now, they say, well, we blot certain things out. To me, this is unacceptable. And parents just don't know what goes on. Now, I'm not trying to label our education as being bad or, but we need to be able to trust our kids when they're in school. We need to be able to trust the schools. And when things like this happen now, we need to find out where this came from, who is doing it, who approved it. Did the parents know? Tara didn't know, to my knowledge. And this is why, when you go in that room and you vote, you better make sure you know who you're voting for and who you're putting on these boards. And I'm not necessarily blaming the Board of Education because they may not even know. We didn't know. Not one person on the Board of Ed knew about this book. Most of the teachers didn't know about the book. And it's just deplorable what goes on in our schools that parents don't know. And this is heartbreaking for me. I spent 14 years on that board. But when you can't get your board to even ask to evaluate so that it's age appropriate, something's wrong. It was wrong back then and it's wrong now. And that's what I've got to say about this.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. We have another public comment? Ginny?
Can I add something to that?
Wait,
I'm
hold on
sorry.
one second.
Betsy McIlvain, 127 Long Meadow Hill. My comment has to do with Mr. Shaker telling you how to vote. That's very inappropriate for anybody at this point. I'm sorry, you can think what you will, you can say it out loud here, but you cannot be soliciting for votes, Harry, and you know better than that.
Thank you. My rebuttal to that, Betty, is I didn't ask anyone, you can sit down, Betty, you can sit down. I didn't ask anyone to vote for anyone. I said just know who you're voting for. And to me, I'll stand behind that. And if somebody wants to come up, you come up and you face me face to face and tell me that I don't have the right to say that. Just simply know who you're voting for and what you're voting for. And that's part of what's wrong with our government, and that's what's wrong with our town, is people are just voting. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm telling you to know what you're voting for. And if you're offended by that, I feel sorry for you. And that's my bottom line.
Okay, yeah. So, any further public comment? Anybody else on the list, Ginny? I want to say I'm sorry, but I'm not. My blood is boiling. That literally all just happened before I walked into this room. I have a lot of information on it. If anybody's interested to learn more about what I saw and read with my own two eyes and what these kids were made to do in school today, please see me after the meeting, and I'm happy to share with you what I know at this point. What are they doing with the data? Is it research? Are they implementing a new program? When it comes to talking to 11-year-olds about making love, that is not for our schools to do. Fire chief, please, for a presentation.
I'll be quick. Chief Woodkey, you want to come up? Andrew Ellis, Fire Chief Brookfield. I have with me Chief Woodkey, our paramedic chief. We have been providing monthly and quarterly reports of our increase of our request for service for the fire department, and particularly the ambulance. We've had conversations over several years with both administrations, when Steve was first selectman and with Tara, about when we're going to have to make some changes, and the call numbers that we are responding to are have become astronomical. Chief Woodkey will tell you about the ambulance increases that we have. I'm going to tell you about the fire department real quick, the increase of numbers that we've had, and kind of when we're done, a couple of things that we're going to be needing coming up. I don't want you to be blindsided. I know Tara has our app on her phone. She knows every time we go out the door, day or night.
And God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate everybody's support. Everybody up here has always been very supportive of us. I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't here tonight letting you know that, putting my hand up saying we need to plan ahead. Okay, because the time has come. There's been a lot of development, and that is a direct result of what's going on with us. Currently, last year we responded to 928 fire calls. Today, we responded to our 1,038th call. Okay? So that's 110 calls ahead of last year, and I have 8.5 weeks left to go for the year. 8.5 busy weeks for us. Okay, so we're probably going to do 1,200, 1,300 calls around there, 1,250 for the fire department. We cover them all. We do what we can. There's increased costs with that, fuel, wear and tear on the vehicles. I'm down an engine right now with brake problems, and I'm down an ambulance right now with brake problems, just due to the wear and tear on the vehicles. I'm going to give you Chief Woodkey real quick to go over the ambulance stuff, and then we'll finish up real quick with some things that we want to make you aware of.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Woodkey. I'm the Deputy Chief of EMS for here Brookfield Volunteer Fire Company. I reside in town at 14 Wisconneer Road, so your community is my community. To say we've had a record-breaking year so far is an understatement. For 2021, we responded to a total of 1,999 calls, total responses, which is the most ever. So far this year, we've responded to 2,230 calls, and that's around noontime today, where we're still going, calls are still running. For the entire year of 2021, we've encountered 1,690 patients, and so far year to date for 2022, we're at 1,741. So we're anticipating about a 25% to 30% growth in transports, and probably about a 32% increase in actual responses. Because there's a lot of people who call us that don't necessarily need the ambulance, but they don't know who else to call for. So with these growth spurts that we're seeing with EMS, we appreciate all the support that we've received so far through the entire community and our town government. Our growth in town with our multi-use residential facilities is just going to keep going. We have two in town. One is 60% capacity and one is 30% capacity. And those so far have done about 220 transports this year. So we're definitely a growing community and a growing community fast. So I'm just here to ask that we continue to receive your support. And I promise you, I'm going to give you the best that I can every day, all day, as is my team of professionals.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. The driving force behind all of this is the development of the town, okay? Multi-family homes, apartment buildings. Wayne, Laurel Hill, how many times have you been there?
Laurel Hill, 68 times this year.
The 3 apartment buildings on Laurel Hill Road, when you come in by the dry cleaners, 68 times this year. The ambulance has been there. The fire department's been there probably another 40. So we probably have 100 calls there, just in those facilities right there. We have more of those being built all over town, okay? And even if something comes in town, it doesn't pull off the schools, like a medical facility or some sort of a box store, that affects us. So there needs to be an impact study on public safety going forward. The police, the fire department, the ambulance. It is really, we're stretching pretty thin. In our upcoming budget, we have a request for an addition at the Center Firehouse to house additional EMS units. That's a must-have for us. I'm running out of room. I need to buy a 4th ambulance next year. That's another item that we have to get. Right now I'm down to 2 ambulances because I have 1 down. I'm a nervous wreck because we go 40, 50 minutes with no ambulance in town because the other 2 are occupied. We can't run like that anymore. Back a few years ago we could. Steve remembers we've had these conversations over years. Hey, when do you think? When do you think? We kind of joke. We're here. Okay, so I need just to sound the alarm to you guys to say we will be coming, asking for things, and this is why. We're doing our best to keep costs down and streamline operations. We do a lot of on-call work instead of paying somebody 24 hours a day. We have backup paramedics that we pay a stipend to be on call. It's a big cost-saving measure that Chief Woodkey developed. It works out really well. But we're running, as Tara knows, because she gets the notifications on her phone like crazy. So on the ambulance end of things, possible additional staffing down the road, I would say so. The hours, we might, like we say, we move the field goal posts, we move the hours, we increase them on some of our ambulance units. We've done that before. That might be a necessity. We will see as that goes. For my volunteers, the ones that go on ambulance calls and do all the fire calls, 100% volunteer, we need to look at increasing our stipend. Okay, $1,500 that we get is great. It's a treat. It costs thousands of dollars to be a volunteer firefighter every year. All right, the fuel alone that these guys go through, going to calls every day, is starting to really cost a lot of money. So that type of thing needs to be looked at down the road. Chief Gramling and myself will get together with you guys. We need to look at that to make sure that we're supporting them as far as that goes. And I also want to be coming to you guys for a billing ordinance. We do billing of insurance companies for property-related motor vehicle accidents and fires. Sometimes we get a little flack from the insurance company. They want to see an ordinance, so we might be coming to you for that, similar to the fire alarm ordinance that we have in town. We're doing everything we can to try to get as much income from alternate sources as we can. We just need your help with that. I don't mean to scare you guys. We're well protected. All right, we have a great staff and volunteers that provide a great service. Yep. But at 1,000 calls in 2 years increase, all right, I don't have a magic 8 ball to say when it's going to stop, but I see the shovels in the ground all over town building things, and that creates calls for me. So we need to be aware of that. And when we come see you, I don't want to see any surprised faces like, oh, what's this? Or, you got to have a 2%. Or I can't do that, okay? Then I'd like a 2% call increase then in return. I'd gladly do that. But we can't. So I just wanted to make you guys be aware. We did put our ARPA funds to use very wisely, and you guys were very generous in helping us with that. And we've actually put the tools to work. We cut a woman out of a car Friday with tools you guys approved through ARPA. We have a new ambulance coming in December that was approved with ARPA funds. That was a huge success for us. And hopefully that'll ease the burden a little bit of the wear and tear on the vehicles. But we just really wanted to make you aware that the development, especially in this town, is what's driving our increase in calls and responses, and that come budget time, it's going to reflect that. And I just didn't want any surprise to people. I send you guys reports. I want you to be informed. Do you guys have any questions for us?
I have, of the 100 calls so far between fire and EMS, do you have an idea of how many are false alarms? Where they...
At Laurel Hill?
Yeah, the ones at home.
At Laurel Hill? The medical calls, half of them are lifted, right?
Yeah, probably.
Probably half result in the transports of a patient because they're injured. So the other half are people that fall, and then the fire calls can be anything from I smell gas. Yeah. We've had a fire there, a couple small ones. We've had people burn food all the time. When you put a bunch of people together, and they're living independently like that, that's what happens. If this was normal, it would be Harry's house, Tara's house, and Steve's house, and there'd be about 5 or 6 people, maybe 3, 4, 5 living in each home on those plots of land. There's dozens and dozens of apartments and families living in those plots. So I'm not going to go to your house as much. I won't go to your guys' house 100 times. But when you put people together like that, that creates calls for us.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for being here. I saw your note of your numbers to the Board of Finance, and I thought you guys have to share this information with the town and put it on record because
well, I appreciate that.
I wanted you to be here.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your time and us getting us first. We got to go to another meeting, but again, we want to work together, but we got to keep everybody protected.
And I do have copies for all of you if you'd like.
Yeah.
You guys know what's going on. Well, we appreciate it. You guys have been huge champions of us, Steve.
Thanks,
we go way back. Thank you. You guys have helped us, Harry. And thank you guys very much.
Be safe out there. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks.
All right. Our next presentation is Greg Dombowski providing 6 different items pertaining to and around the Town Center District.
Good evening, everyone. I have handouts of the presentation. I know it's in the package. I have 10 copies. Does anybody need one? You good? All right, here they are. Super. Okay, so a lot to cover tonight. I will get through this as quick as I can. I'd like to talk about what we're doing in the Town Center District on streetscape, the Lower Federal Road project, which is directly a traffic safety issue, and I wish Andy was staying here for this to know the kind of benefits we expect in public safety on that project and where it stands. And then finally, the Still River Greenway Trails Extension Study. So with that, if it's okay with you, I'd like to get through all of this and then look at all the recommendations in one package because they're all most of them are interrelated. One kind of depends on the other. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start with Phase 3. That construction reached a milestone in October. You can drive now and go look at our beautiful new extension. It's lit up at night. The only thing not done are the park benches, the pocket park lighting bollards around the circle, the shrubs and grass that'll all be installed in the spring. That project's gonna come in under budget. You may recall it's a $1.3 million project. $1 million of it is with LOTSIP money. That's gonna come in at least 25,000 under. And of the 260,000, which is the town's portion, I'm estimating that'll come in around 20,000 under. It's probably gonna be more than that, but I'm holding out because we're not gonna finish till this next spring. And I don't know what this winter's gonna bring us on the work we've done and it holding up through the winter, because that grass is just starting to germinate now. So with that, the idea came from, I think initially Harry, about a flagpole in the middle of the pocket park. So just a couple things on that. That pocket park is in state right-of-way. It's not town property. So we could put one there, or we're gonna need an encroachment permit. And that flag is gonna have to meet the DOT standards. And their standards for a maximum wind speed is higher than the town standard, 150 miles an hour. That's gonna put us in a little more expensive pole. So it can't be done, but it's gonna be a little more expensive pole, especially if we want one about 45 feet high. We've asked the DOT 2 weeks ago, would they allow us to change our project, a scope change, and have the LOTSIP grant pay for the flagpole? I still don't have an answer from them. They said they're looking into it. So it's, if we want to go forward with this, it'll either come from the LOTSIP portion or the town portion. Obviously, we're hoping for the LOTSIP portion. We have prepared a design-build RFP. I've spoken to 2 flagpole companies. I won't go into the detail unless you'd like me to, but I'm estimating the cost for that flagpole and the lighting to be about $25,000. So the last thing is that, just as a reminder, and I think the board knows this, the state made it clear to us that if we do decide to put a sculpture, an art piece in the pocket park, they will not allow us to use lots of funding. That will have to come out of town funding. So with that, I recommend an action, as I state here, assuming no art sculpture is planned, issue the design-build RFP flagpole paid for with LOTSIP funds, if allowed by the DOT, or town funds if necessary, even not to exceed our existing budget of $260,000. So that's my recommended action on Streetscape Phase 3 as it relates to the pocket park. Now, that is a standalone item. We can discuss it now, or I can go through the rest of the
I
presentation.
just have one question. Did we have a discussion with the Arts Commission about this?
I spoke with Ms. Ball and Ms. Malik, and they said that they could see the flagpole going there. If we wanted to do a flagpole, they'd be amenable to that, and they'd move their idea for sculptures elsewhere along the Still River Greenway. And I said, well, take this information back to your commission, please discuss it, which they did, and then they came back to me and said that the commission would still like to see a sculpture there. So I'm not comfortable moving forward with anything until we know it can be covered by LOTSIP. How much balance will you have out of the funds from the town side for Phase 3?
Right now, I'm estimating about $20,000.
So we'd be
We won't
short
know
about
that number
5
till
on
we
a
close out in the
flagpole.
spring. We won't have actual numbers till we close the project.
My concern about the sculpture, and I told Loretta and Catherine about this, is that, there could be vandalism or the funding for the sculpture. Sculptures can be quite expensive, which you guys learned the last round with the disapproval of what they brought forward. Everyone has their own opinion on art, so they could have a hard time coming to a consensus on what would be acceptable for the pocket park. The flagpole would be the easy solution, but I don't want to do anything without any money.
Yeah, I would want to wait till we know exactly what the numbers are, and I'd like to get a firm discussion with the Arts Commission. I know they did a lot of work previously on this. Flagpoles are great. I think they're wonderful, but a flagpole is a flagpole. It seems, as you said, easy, simple way out. All right, let's just throw a flagpole up. I think we should explore all the options. One, make sure we have the money and how much money it is, and 2, have a sincere, real discussion about what we want our downtown to look like. I have no objection to flagpoles. I just want to make sure that that's a thing that the town.
Yeah, Greg, and also that, the cost of it also includes, this isn't something you just stick in the ground. This has a foundation and whatever. And when I went to Greg, my first statement was, we're not in a position right now to just go spend $25,000 on a flag. So I am not in favor of using, just our general money to do that. If we can do it through the LOPSIT, fine. If we can't, then I would not support, spending town money on $25,000 on a flag.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this. I happen to think it looks beautiful right now, and thank you for all the hard work you put in, not just into the old Route 7 area, but the Pocket Park itself with the pumpkin and the flowers. Right now, it looks really pretty. And I'm excited to see the benches and the plantings. I know that you all have put so much into this, so thank you for your hard work. But my motion
I'd
would be to
second that
table.
motion. I don't want to do anything right now.
Any
I agree,
discussion?
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Jen-
you.
Jenny, if you can scroll down to the bottom of this page, please. So this is the second item to talk about, and this is the Still River Greenway Extension Study. As you all know, we were allocated ARPA funds, and we went out with an RFP, and the lowest qualified bidder was Stantec Engineering. We hired them 4 or 5 months ago, and they made, as was said previous, we had a public info meeting on October 20th. There were 40 attendees, none from Laurel Hill Road, which was a huge disappointment to me. The people who were invited were the various boards and commissions, planning, wetlands, economic development, and every resident that abutted any one of the 3 options that were studied. And of that group of 150 or so, 40 people did attend. So as I say here, there were 3 options presented, and the vast majority of the attendees, I think all but 2 or 3, were Newberry Village and Riverview condo owners. And almost to a person, they said they did not want that trail between the back of their buildings and the river on their side of the river, on the west side. Their concerns, in summary, were public safety, loss of privacy, and trespassing. So they made it clear that it's not something they wanted to see, kind of not in my backyard thing. So we understood that. So we went back and we talked about all the feedback we received. And we've had several discussions with Stantec, with Jay Annis, myself, and our streetscape engineers, and then talked about what we should recommend. That final report is going to come out in a couple weeks, and it's going to recommend an option 4. And option 4 was just conceived really as a result from the feedback we got from the public meeting. And what that recommendation is a change of scope on streetscape phase 4. Basically changing phase 4 from the Agora restaurant all the way to Newberry Village from a 5-foot sidewalk to an 8-foot Still River Greenway trail extension, a multi-use trail. And then the recommendation is going to be to have a crosswalk at the very north end of Newberry Village. A crosswalk near the southern driveway in Newberry Village for the trail to continue north on the east side of Federal Road, outside of their berm and fenced area and treat area. And then when you get past Newberry Village or right at the Newberry Village property line, go east through the area. There's some wetlands there. There's also some non-wetlands areas. Get to the river and then go north. And then you come in behind the planned development that is owned by the Youngs, and you either stay along the river or come back out more back towards towards Federal Road to get to the New Milford line. And the reason that exact path is not known is because it's a FEMA floodway, and there's endangered species in that whole habitat in that whole area. So until really more work is done to know the exact layout and ADA compliance for this recommended option, that is the general path that this task force or this study is going to recommend. So that's, in summary, 4 or 5 months of work. So having said that, I'd like to read the recommended action, which, by the way, has the endorsement of Jay Annis, who leads the Still River Greenway Task Force, and our Stantec engineer, and our Freeman engineers who have been designing with us the Phase 4 option. So before I read that, do you have any questions about my recommended option?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Greg. One, Newbury Village, when they were first built, granted the town the easement for the walk.
They did.
Right, so all the property owners should have known there was an easement for a greenway behind their properties, right? It shouldn't come as a surprise.
There's no easement for Riverview.
No, but there isn't one for Riverview, that's a problem.
Well, there are easements. There's easements for Riverview and
There
there's
is.
easements for Newberry Village. But the easement language, we had Dennis take a look at, our town attorney, and for Newberry, I'm sorry, for Riverview, it is very clear that the way that easement, that conservation easement is written, we couldn't put the trail on that easement without their homeowner association vote of approval.
Okay.
It's just the way the easement
Yeah,
was
yeah.
written.
Okay.
Basically, it's a
And therefore no
conservation easement. It says you can't disturb the land. Well, to put a trailer in, you've got to disturb the land.
Yeah.
So it would take the homeowners a vote of approval to change that.
Okay.
And we heard them say loud and clear, we're not gonna allow it to change.
I understand that.
So basically,
I feel
that
the
puts us
same way.
back on Federal Road North. Now, it's not the most ideal route, because do you want a multi-use
Walk along
trail
the
on
highway.
Federal Road?
Yeah. So are we talking an improved sidewalk?
We're talking an improved sidewalk, a multi-use trail on the curb of Federal Road, on the one side only.
The same way it is in front of the old Duncan.
Yeah, I know.
So to get to option 4, where does that money come from?
So that's further in the presentation. It's gonna be a change of scope of Streetscape Phase 4, and it's one of my recommended options for tonight that we're gonna get to in a couple of minutes.
So just to be clear, looking for an option 4, because there were only 3 options provided by Santec as part of the ARPA-funded study.
Mhm.
Option 4 can't be paid for out of that first round of money that went for the study.
Yes, their study will include the layout and a rough budget number for this 4th option. Their study isn't final. Part of the process of this study was to come up with options, have a public hearing, take the public comment, and issue a final report with the public comment in mind. That's where this 4th option came. So their study is going to include the 4th option and a cost estimate for that option.
Oh, but to get to the 4th option, it's covered in the study. It's paid for.
Yes.
To
Okay.
design it, to
Yes.
do this initial.
Yeah, it's going to be.
The actual
it's gonna be a
construction is-
conceptual layout. We're not doing survey work, we're not checking for ADA compliance, we're not getting cost estimates for bridges over streamways. That's a level of detail that is beyond the study.
Have we had any discussions with Roy Young about him allowing us to go onto his property?
Shannon Young, Shannon's
Shannon is
managing the
running it?
property we have.
Okay.
Actually, Shannon was on the call.
And he's positive, negative?
He is positive for allowing us to have an easement through his property. Now, that property is now being considered for some warehousing space.
Right.
So when he was in the Development Services meeting here, maybe about a month ago, and when he was making his presentation on the development of that site, it's 1050 Federal Road, we asked him, could we consider a trail easement through his property more towards the river, close to the river?
Right.
And he said he'll absolutely work with us on that.
Okay. I
Details.
just don't want to get to this end of Newbury and we have nothing.
Understand.
But to Greg's point on protected species, I know the EPA and DEEP are very concerned about that area back there for
Well,
the turtles
It
population.
only held up Super 7 for 4 or 5 years. so-
Right.
Greg, real quick.
Yep.
So the walkway would go in front of Agora, correct?
The walkway now, just like the
I mean, the
sidewalk,
greenway would be
it'll
in,
go in front of the Agora. Now,
Okay.
that's not gonna be 8 foot. There's no way we could get
Right.
8 feet there. It's only gonna be 5 feet, because in front of the Agora, you got a steep,
Yeah.
a steep slope, and their septic tank is
Yeah.
in the front yard.
I was just
So-
gonna make, if you get off the Southbury exit and head, you get off and you go past Patty's Pantry there and head out towards Waterbury, they have a beautiful walkway. But it's about 20 or 30 feet off the road. And that was my concern if we have 8 feet right on Federal Road, so. that-
Yeah, it's not the most ideal. Obviously, it's a Still River Greenway trail. We'd like to get the trail on or near the river, off a main road. But we heard from the residents that said, no, not in our backyard.
Okay.
The other choice that we looked at was going on the east side of the river, or you can go all the way up Laurel Hill Road, all the way up. So these are really much more expensive and probably impractical options, because getting a right-of-way from the railroad, forget it. We've tried. We should try again, but we've had no luck with any cooperation. The railroad doesn't want to give up the right-of-way. I can't blame them.
Okay, thank you.
Are we still having discussions with New Milford to connect our greenway to their greenway?
So Jay talked to his counterpart in New Milford. They've got easement challenges as well. They have an 11-part trail plan, 11 phases. 3 phases are done, 2 are in pre-construction, I understand. And they're having challenges getting south to our line. But we're many years away from there ourselves.
We can just run it up 7.
Yeah, right on the Federal Road. Yeah, right on Federal Highway.
Okay.
So with that, can I just read this recommended action? Sure. So, again, this would issue an RFP for the development of a conceptual plan as described in option 4 from this study, which we will get in a couple weeks. And that route, as I say, starts at Federal Road at Newberry Village. This is after Phase 4, because Phase 4 is going to do the portion of Newberry Village. That's the end of Phase 4, and terminate at the New Milford Town Line. The deliverable for this plan will be June of 2023, and will be the basis of our next LOTSIP grant application, which will be in the fall of '23. So this is setting up us to apply for our next LOTSIP grant, which would be the next phase of the Still River Greenway extension. But that's still a year out before the next round of applications even open.
And Greg, forgive me if we just talked about this, but where would the funding for this study come from?
Well, so I would need your approval, this board's approval, to go out to an RFP for that conceptual plan. Now, I've asked a couple engineering companies, just give me a ballpark. How much do you think it would cost for this conceptual plan as described here? They said, if you want to get a survey, if you want to get layout, topography, you want to talk to DEEP, you want to do an endangered species study to measure the species, the type, et cetera, they said in the area of $20,000 to $30,000 just for the conceptual plan. This is not even a design plan. The design plan would be a LOTSIP application next fall. So we've got 6 or 8 months worth of work just to have a conceptual plan that tees us up for a LOTSIP application a year from now.
So you're not asking for funding now for that? You're asking just to approve option 4, the consideration of option 4, and to issue an RFP
for a
conceptual plan, which costs us nothing.
Which will be in the neighborhood of 20 to 30,000, we're guessing.
Right. Okay.
So that is my recommended action. I know that I rolled a lot into this, but maybe you want to come back and hear what I've got to say about streetscape and come back to it, because this fits into the overall streetscape plan, if you'd like. So is that okay? Can we go on?
Yeah.
You good?
One question. The 20 or 30,000 is coming from change in streetscape phase 4's budget?
No. The streetscape phase 4 has already been conceptually designed. That would be another source of funding, that 20 or 30,000. The conceptual plan for the Still River Greenway extension would need to find another source of funding.
It would be from phase 6, right?
Well, it could come from phase 6, because as you're going to hear in a minute, I'm going to recommend we cancel phase 6. It could come from that. So why don't we get this phase and then come back to this, because it's all, sorry. Welcome to my world. Okay, phase 4. Phase 4, as designed back in 2019, 3 years ago, we laid out phase 4 before phase 2 was even engineered. And that was to go from the Agora Restaurant all the way to Newberry Village. And just for the sake of reference, I listed major milestones since 2019 on that project. And I won't read every one of those, but basically, the summer of '21, we put the project on hold. We stopped all engineering work, we stopped any work on the project, and the reason we stopped is because the DOT told us, why should we approve a streetscape project in front of this development called the Enclave in Green Acres when their projects aren't even approved and in? Why should we give you state money to put in sidewalks? They just may rip them out. So we put the project on hold. Okay, that was last summer. What's happened since then? So now I'm going to get out of the box. The Enclave, I talked to Tony Lucera regularly, including yesterday. That project, just so you know, is approved with 181 apartments. But the only way he can put in 181 apartments is if he also purchases the property at 854 Federal Road, owned by Ed McCarty. He's been trying to buy that parcel for a couple years, maybe longer. Still hasn't been able to purchase it for whatever reason. He did buy 874 Federal, Peters Imports. I think they closed on that maybe last summer, maybe a little longer. So we've been held captive to the Enclave project in the eyes of the DOT. Tony met with us last fall and he said, you know what, maybe I should just scale this project back. I don't know if and when I'm ever going to get 854. Why don't I just put in 90 apartments on the old Peters Import property and call that my development? He pitched that to the land use department last summer, last fall. We said, okay, good. But he's now kind of pulled back on that, and he's still hoping for the whole enchilada, the whole 181 apartments. But that's going nowhere.
Wouldn't hold your breath.
No, not going anywhere. So here we are today. 3 years later, we're still in limbo. But now we have a Still River Greenway study saying, well, we're ready to, they want to move forward with the trail extension. And what we agreed, and our engineers agreed, is forget about the Enclave. And you can read up in that box where we scoped this project with and without the Enclave being done. And we had a TAP grant, we rescinded a TAP grant, we changed the scope of a LOTSIP grant. This thing's gone back and forth for 3 years now. We're at the point where we just got to move. So what we're suggesting is the combination of Phase 4, Phase 6, and the Still River Greenway study have brought us to a point where I think we need to move with this and call this our trail extension going north to Newberry Village, then we'll cut over on the other side of the road and get to the river, in combination with canceling Streetscape Phase 6. And I'll say why in a couple of minutes. So that's where Phase 4 is. Of course, the Barnyard project's made a lot of progress. That's at 857 Federal Road. It's approved for 99 apartments. There's been a lot of, they demoed their blighted building. They've already started pre-construction activities. Tara and I were on a conference call with them last week, and that construction is moving forward. At 887, there's 8 apartments going in, and there's a lot of other work going on to clean up blighted properties along this route of Streetscape Phase 4. So a lot's been going on the past few years, but Streetscape has gone nowhere. We've been sitting there really spinning our wheels. So if you can scroll down, please, Jenny. So the real questions, if you really boil all of this down, there's been 2 unanswered questions that I think we're ready to answer and move forward on. And the first one is, what does a town do first? Do we wait for all the development to happen on Phase 4 with those property owners, let all the apartments come in, and then put in Streetscape? Or do we go forward now and have the development follow, or maybe go in concert with us? So that's one of the key questions. What goes first, Streetscape, or you wait for all the development? I'll tell you, if we wait any longer on Phase 4, we're probably going to get the LOTSIP grant pulled from us. For 3 years, we've been on their list and have done nothing. Every quarter I get a phone call. What are you doing? When are you going to go? You going to do this or not? Can we have an update? And we've been telling them, give me another month, give me another quarter. I think it's time to move.
The town portion of this was bonded, Marcia?
Yeah.
Huh?
I can't remember what was what, but it was
Yeah, I
already
think it is.
approved, whether it was bonded.
Yeah, it's already been
So if
approved.
it was bonded, how long do we have to commit?
We have 3 years, however, it would look at the whole bond together, and as if we've done most of it, then we shouldn't be impacted.
Okay.
Greg, one quick question. If we were to move forward with the streetscapes, is it possible for zoning or the town to tell the builders, if you build and damage any part of streetscapes, that would have to be replaced or refurbished at your expense?
They have to. It's in the
Okay,
zoning
okay,
regs.
okay.
There's a section in the zoning regs called streetscape design standards. So anybody that puts in their development, just like the medical center is going to put in streetscape.
Right.
They have to put in our standards, which is everything
Right.
you see when you
Okay.
go out there.
Actually, our zoning laws say that we can require the developers to build to our standard. So we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
ask, that's why we were waiting for the Enclave.
Right.
Tony said he would build that section of the sidewalk, and
Right.
now
And I believe Scales was
Greenway.
doing that with the medical. place,
600,000.
right? They're-
So
they're-
for the barnyard, are they gonna match our streetscape?
So, the nuance on Phase 4, and boy, there's a lot of nuance on these projects, is because of, if you look at Federal Road along this route of Phase 4, the sidewalk's only gonna be on the west side of the road. The east side of the road, north of the barnyard, has a huge steep drop-off, no state right-of-way that allows us to get a sidewalk on that side. So from the barnyard, north of the barnyard, on Phase 4, it'll just be sheet flow as it is now into that wetlands area. There'll still be lights every 50 feet on alternating sides. There'll still be a granite curb on the entire west side, but on the east side, only from Phase 1 to the barnyard. North of the barnyard, because there's no storm drainage, and it's all just sheet flow into a wetlands area.
And there'll be a crosswalk there, correct?
There's gonna be one crosswalk, at least one crosswalk, either at the Green Acres or at Riverview.
Okay.
And then another one at Newberry Village,
Okay.
pending DOT approval. So that's the first unanswered question. What do we do first, streetscape or wait for all the development to happen? The second question is, where are we gonna extend the trail? What routes are gonna take? Well, you just heard my suggestion and what the study's gonna recommend on that we include Phase 4 to be the next step of the Greenway extension going north. So, to do this, we have to request a change of scope for Phase 4. It's already been DOT approved. It's been approved by the voters of this town to widen it from 5 to 8 feet from the Agora Restaurant all the way to Newberry Village. There's some other minor changes I can talk about, but they're very minor, that I'll need a ZBA variance for to meet our own standards for streetscape. And then we've got to go back to WestCog, the DOT, in town for approval. The current budget is $3.6 million, as approved by the voters 3 years ago. We have three things going against that number. One is a lot more inflation than we thought of 3 years ago. Number two, this is going in a year later than we thought. And number three, we're widening the sidewalk. So this $3.6 million is going to go up. Where does that money come from?
Phase 6.
Phase 6. So that's the logic on how we got to Phase 4 and how we're going to fund this, and I'll talk about Phase 6 in a minute. So my recommended action here is we prepare a revised LOTSIP application for Phase 4 for your approval, the Board of Finance approval, and restart engineering design with the goal to complete this project construction of Phase 4 in the fall of 2024. And it's going to take 2 years of work to do that.
And just to your question, Tara, look, I just checked my cheat sheet because I get mixed up on the phases. Phase 4 was 460 local money bonded, and we have not bonded it yet because it keeps getting delayed. Phase 6 was 205 local money bonded, and we have not bonded that. It's approved, authorized, but unissued for both of those. So we haven't started the clock yet on 3 years.
Thank you.
So we have 605,000 approved for both Phase 4 and Phase 6.
6, I think it's 460
Four.
and 205, so
Oh,
665.
665 then, sorry.
So I think you should sit on this one till you hear the rest of the presentation, then maybe, because Phase 4 and Phase 6 go hand in hand in my mind. So,
Okay.
you good?
Any other questions there, you guys?
No.
No.
All right. Phase 6. Phase 6 was to go from the Brookfield Cleaners at the end of Phase 3, which is now complete, at the intersection of Old Route 7 and Laurel Hill Road, all the way up to Station Road. And then it was to cut over Station Road and tie into Phase 1. And the main, if you remember my presentation to the Board of Finance way back in October of 2021, the main purpose, there was two main purposes. One was to extend the Still River Greenway north. This Still River Greenway along this route would be on the east side of Laurel Hill Road. It would be in everyone's front yard, not even in their backyard. But at the time, we thought that was the only practical option. So that's how Phase 6 was conceptualized. It was approved in the 2022 referendum, in the 2023 capital budget for $4 million, of that 400, the exact number is, I think you already said it, is $205,000 is town money. Of that, we've already spent $6,500 just in the past year and month in preliminary design. We stopped work on that when we started the Still River Greenway study, so this project's been on hold now for at least a half a year. So again, I say it here, the main goal of this phase was to extend the Still River Greenway north. We stopped all work when we started the trail study. So my recommended action here is we rescind this LOTSIP grant application for Phase 6. We eliminate the $4 million capital budget from the capital plan, we stop all work, and close the capital project. Of that $205,000 that was approved for this, this board can decide to reallocate 20 or 30,000 of it for the conceptual plan for the Still River Greenway, or you can find another source of money. So that's my recommendation on Phase 6 as I stated. Now I will say two things about this phase, because here's another one where WestCog asked, when are you going to do this? When are you going to submit your application? DOT's waiting for your next detailed design plan. I'm sorry, we're on hold. Give me another month. Give me another month. That's been going on for a while. Just a note on this. This project may be justified in the future if we just want to have a sidewalk on Laurel Hill Road. It doesn't have to be an 8-foot wide Still River Greenway trail. It can be a 5-foot sidewalk. That sidewalk already exists in front of Laurel Hill condos and the Laurel Hill apartments. Not to our standards, they were put in before streetscape, but we can still extend the sidewalk up Laurel Hill Road with a future LOTSIP grant application. I just don't think it's as high priority as Phase 4.
Have we spent any money on the Phase 6?
$6,500.
$6,500?
Basically my time.
Okay,
And a little bit of engineering time.
okay.
So how many easements would we need to complete the Phase 6?
I'm sorry, Tara, say it
How
again.
many easements, how many residents need approval?
20.
For Phase 6, it was either 5 or 6. And in some cases, those homes are close to the road, and it would have been an 8-foot sidewalk in their front yard. And again, I was hoping those residents would come to our public info meeting. They were all invited. One called me the day after the meeting, said, sorry, they missed it. So I told them to go to YouTube and watch the video, 2.5-hour presentation or discussion.
One quick question. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's 5 or 6 easements, none of which we've gone to seek because this project's been on hold.
So if 5 say yes and 1 says no, it's all bets are off?
No, we can still go with the project, but the state will not release their money to you until all easements are recorded in the town clerk's office. And that can be a challenge if you have somebody holding out. In Phase 1, we can tell you stories about all kinds of delays we had to incur because the last person held out for their easement and they knew they were the last one, so it was a negotiation.
Usually you negotiate because you pay for the easements.
Yeah, they get
And
compensated.
there's a point at which most property owners will say, okay, I'll give you the easement.
Yeah. And the cost for that easement, by the way, is covered by the LOTSIP grant.
If we eliminate Phase 6, does that either jeopardize or change our status with the state just because we're dropping one of the
No,
phases?
I think we gain credibility.
Okay.
If we go to them and say, listen,
We're dropping.
we're dropping it, we're gonna give this money back to WestCog,
Right.
I think our credibility goes up, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And the last thing I'll say about Phase 6 is because it also was gonna put the sidewalk on Station Road on both sides, all the way to the Four Corners intersection, depending on the 20 Station Road remediation and redevelopment grant that we should hear about this month, if that project goes, that developer has to put in streetscape in front of 20 Station Road, but it's gonna be discontinuous from what's at the Four Corners, because there's a car wash in between. So we may want to come back with something on Station Road in the future, depending on really about the 20 Station Road development. As you know, from the Four Corners all the way to Laurel Hill, it needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we'll never come back for anything on Phase 6, but at this point, I just think it's not our top priority.
Why can't it run on the other side of 20 Station?
The sidewalk's gonna run on both sides.
Oh.
Phase 6, we're gonna run it on both sides of the road, both sides of Station, all the way to Four Corners. It was gonna eliminate the island in the middle of the T. At Laurel Hill Road at
Right.
Station, that center island was coming out, that whole intersection was gonna get upgraded.
Okay.
That's why it was a $4 million project, it was a big phase. So that is my recommended action on Phase 6. So my next update is on the Lower Federal Road project, but that's all I have on streetscape. So we can take a pause and you all can decide what actions you'd like to take.
So I have a couple questions, because this already went to vote and the townspeople already approved it at referendum, do we now have to go back to the town the same way we did with the locker room? Because we're looking at reallocating the funding from one project to another project?
No, I think it's up to the, Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's up to the Board of Selectmen to make a determination. I think all of our referendums say we can spend or not spend the money, right? We can spend up to the amount, or the Board of Selectmen may change the scope of a project, and we're changing the scope on this project to 0. I don't think we have to go back
Well,
to
we're
the
looking
town.
to use the money because we're anticipating a price increase on phase 4.
That might be
But
problematic.
I won't know that price increase till you allow
Yeah.
me
Go
to
to
restart
RFP,
the
yeah.
engineering work with the revised scope. I can't tell you how much more it will be. If you asked my personal opinion on phase 4, I think we're gonna go up at least another $500,000, maybe 750.
And here we are in the same predicament where we're getting the same project for more money.
Yeah.
Yes, but we won't spend the 4 million. I think we'll spend another $500,000 or 750.
Yeah.
And we won't spend all of the town's portion. The town's portion of 205,000 on phase 6, I'm guessing maybe another 50,000 would be needed to all the rework on phase 4. So in a sense, we're giving back to the town, I'm gonna guess about 150,000.
Right, okay.
So it's up to us to cancel phase 6 tonight?
Yeah, we can do that. Right, Dennis? There's no problem.
No, there's no problem doing that, and the facts do sound very similar to the locker room project, which I already issued the opinion on, but I could touch base with Craig after to make sure I have all the funding questions correctly and respond. If it's any different than what my position was on the locker room project, I will let the board know.
The only difference is we haven't bonded for this. I think the locker room was bonded. Anyway, we're just wondering about the reallocation of the money.
Bond resolution, but we haven't physically bonded, so, but that shouldn't make a difference.
No, if it hasn't been and it has to go through the process, it's gonna go through the process again.
Yeah, the most pressing thing is to get started on phase 4. If we wanna go out to bid in 13 months to be constructing in the summer of 2024, we need to get going on phase 4. It's gonna take all of that to get this thing through the DOT.
So by canceling phase 6, we essentially would be committing to have streetscape phase 4 coincide with the Still River Greenway expansion northbound along Federal Road.
Yes. But phase 4 just gets us to Newberry Village.
Right.
Then the Still River, then the next lots of grant application in the fall of '23, in my mind, would be not a streetscape project, but a Still River Greenway extension project.
I agree.
And what I'm hearing from Westcog is the next solicitation on lot zip is gonna be about a year from now. So we got a lot of work even to get to that point.
Okay, so do you want us to start at number 4 and work our way back, or go back to number 2 and go back to?
I will tell you, when I present this to Westcog, and if we do have a tag meeting tomorrow at 11, I'm gonna package these up. I'm gonna say to Westcog, I don't know how much more phase 4 is gonna be. It's gonna be more. They're gonna wanna know how much. But in conjunction with me requesting more money voted on by the Westcog board, I'm also gonna say we're giving back phase 6. The net of it's gonna be less lots of money to Brookfield, and I think they're gonna view that favorably.
Well, don't be so quick to say we're giving back lots of phase 6 money, because we need it for phase 4.
I'm saying it's gonna be a package deal.
Okay.
I'm gonna want them to act on both at the same time.
So we'll ask for an increase of lot zip for phase 4 and tell them at the same time, phase 6, we're freeing up 4 million.
Yes,
I think they'll be very favorable.
because I will tell you.
So net, we're ahead, Westcog, 3.4 million.
About,
That's a good thing.
so I will tell you, for the first time that I've been working with the COG, this is the first time they're oversubscribed on lots of grant applications. They're over 100% of their allocation.
Yeah.
So now it's a scramble to get the projects done,
Yeah.
so.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to rescind the existing lot zip grant application for Streetscape Phase 6 to eliminate the $4 million capital budget FY 2023, stop all design work, and close the capital project account.
I think you want to change that. You want to stop the entire project, including the town portion, right? We want to rescind the approval for the furtherance of phase 6. including both lots that free that money up, send it back to the state and the town portion, right? You have to do both.
Doesn't the 4 million include the town portion?
It does.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, are you going to allow some of that 205,000 of the town money for the conceptual design for the Still River Greenway extension?
Are
Well,
we
here's-
allowed to?
That's a legal question. Can we move money from one project that was approved to another, although it's in the same vein and the same style and for the same purpose? That's
Yeah,
a
and
legal
again-
question.
And again, it sounds very familiar to similar to the fact pattern presented in the locker room project, save it hasn't been bonded, is that what you're saying?
It hasn't been bonded, but this is different than what was in the resolution, I believe, that the phase, this conceptual plan was not at all a part of phase 6, correct?
Correct. This conceptual plan is a Still River Greenway extension, not a streetscape. There is a little difference there.
Yeah,
But
there is a difference.
Yeah, all I can say at this point is I don't have any of the resolutions in front of me. I haven't looked at the issue at all. I'm happy to do so this week. So if the board's gonna act tonight, it'll do so subject to the town attorney's reviewing the issue. Because I obviously don't have any of the documents with prior resolutions or approvals.
So the motion would be that we rescind Phase 6 streetscape, right? Including returning the lot zip grant for the 3.8 million or so, whatever it is, and to rescind the town portion, the 205,000, less the amounts already spent on this project, right?
The 6,500
6,500, right in that area.
and the amount for, what again? The amount for the
Conceptual-
phase 4 study, option 4 study.
Well, so, I don't know how much more we're gonna need for phase 4. You first have to allow me to restart engineering work for phase 4 with the new scope of work. Once we can restart that work, I can come back to you next month with a cost estimate for the new phase 4.
Yep.
The wider sidewalk, updated cost estimates. We haven't looked at it in over 2 years.
Right.
So I don't know how much more money we're gonna need for phase 4. I just don't have the answer to that. In addition to that, I'm asking for another 20 to 30,000 for a conceptual plan for the Still River Greenway extension beyond phase 4.
And that would be a new,
Right.
That's a
that
new,
would be totally new.
That's a new
We'd
request.
have to approve.
Steve, what you said, was that pending legal counsel approval or?
Yeah, I think we can rescind the project at any time that we want. The question becomes to legal counsel, can we take the funding from one project and move it to another? Is the bonding resolutions written in a way that would allow us to do that? My guess is the answer is no. It's just too big a draw, it's just too far a step. And the reason we do that is we don't want money approved for police cars and we end up building a carousel with that money. Sometimes I've
Yeah,
done stuff
yeah.
like that, right? And we want to be very careful that we follow the rule.
So can we vote to?
We can vote to drop this
Pen-
project right now.
But
Let me ask.
Pen-
may I ask a
pending-
question,
yeah,
sir?
sure.
So, what this I'm hearing is a package deal, so if the issue does come out where the funds cannot be used in the way that you're requesting, then would determination still be something that you would recommend?
it would be.
Okay, that's just wanted
We
to,
would-
I didn't wanna I wanted to make sure that this would, that
Then
if
we
they
would
voted that
have-
way, it wasn't,
Right.
if it was a package deal or not.
Right.
And
And then
there-
we would have to come back. If it turns out, based on the bond resolutions, we can't use part of the 205,000 for the conceptual design for phase 6, then Greg would have to come back to the board and we'd have to appropriate up to $30,000 for that design study and then go to the Board of Finance in our normal process.
And if I had to do that, I would argue that 75,000 ARPA money was allocated. We spent 25,000 with this study.
Oh,
And if you haven't reallocated that remaining 50, I think clearly that would be enough for us to do the conceptual plan.
Well, that would require a town meeting.
Would it?
ARPA.
Well, you already approved 75,000.
If it's already been approved, obviously
Oh.
not, but.
Yeah,
But we
yeah,
took-
no, we already
Okay.
approved it. We're
But we
saying we're
took
not just
25
gonna.
away.
So we're down to 25?
I think we're down to 50 because we took 20,
That's more than
70.
enough to do the
I
project, so we made a good.
I think we
Right.
can make it work.
Yeah, we can make that work. And if we don't, we come back and we start over.
So what I'm hearing, Greg, is that the $50,000, if it's already been approved through ARPA, that can be used for what you're recommending if we cannot use the shift,
Yes,
the shift with
that would be my recommendation.
Right.
And I'll confer with you this week to get some more detail on that, so I can get back to you.
Dennis, my concern is that we don't approve to rescind this, and then have you come back after you look at the resolutions and say, if this has to go back to the town or something. Do we have to just cover ourselves by saying pending, okay from
That's what I would just ask Greg, and see if it appears no, and that's what I wanted to know, whether if you could not use the funds in the way that you were suggesting, which was reallocating and using it for a different project, if the answer to that was no, then it came down with you have to go back and get the regular approvals, would you still recommend terminating phase 6?
Yes.
And the answer seems to be yes.
Okay.
Would be yes.
Okay.
You know, I can argue on the other hand that Still River Greenway Extension and Streetscape are all part of the revitalization plan of the TCD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In
they're
that
the
regard,
same
they're the
vein.
same,
Yep.
but a sidewalk and a trail really aren't the same completely.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a gray area.
It is a gray area.
There's gotta be a caveat for that with the revitalization.
It's okay,
We just
I live in
wanna
a
be
gray
very
area.
careful.
Right, of course.
We don't want people to
Okay.
think we're trying
My whole life is a gray
to put
area.
a shell game on them. Okay.
The ultimate goal is to continue the progress of the Town Center District streetscape and carry the path northbound.
Right.
Right.
And we just gotta get going on phase 4. We gotta get going.
All right, let's vote.
So we have a motion before us.
I'll second it.
You got that one, Ginny?
She's on page 3.
You want me to read it? I better read it.
Sure.
Okay. Rescind phase 6, including returning lots of grant in the amount that was 3 million something?
How much is the lot set?
Is it-
Well, the total project is $4 million, which includes $205,000
From
of the
the
town
town.
match.
So it's $3,795,000
That's what it is?
I don't have that exact number. I would
$3,795,000
just say it's $4 million, including the town
205.
match.
Hold on, I have the exact number.
Are you questioning my math?
Do you have the exact number?
$3,795,000 plus $205,000
All right.
equals $4 million.
All right. And the resolution, by the way, says Streetscape Phase 6. That,
Okay, streetscape phase 6. So so change that wording to streetscape
I
phase
just-
6.
Not just phase 6, one street.
Yeah.
Okay, and then,
I could find on
and
my
then rescind
phone.
the town portion less the amounts already spent on this project. That's
Which is, let's add, which is approximately $6,500.
what I have. Oh, I have to do this.
So we have that record in the future.
Find it again here.
65, okay.
What about earmarking any money for future work?
I don't think we can, because remember the discussion we had about project to project? You can't just move money from one project to another without approval. Unless the town attorney can see his way clear to look at the bond resolutions and see if that's possible.
Yeah, and that's what, and Smart's just sending me them now.
I don't
so I'll
think
have
it's
them.
possible, but if you read them, then come back to us and tell us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Not that I'm not an attorney, but it does say Streetscape Phase 6 pretty
Yeah,
clearly.
I think we're kind of stuck there. And if we have to,
I'll
we'll go
look
back
at
and
it to make sure we're not missing anything.
reallocate the money from ARPA
Seems
to do
clear.
the design, right?
fair enough.
So
Fine.
we're good
We
there.
don't need the ARPA for other things.
Right.
Things are not looking good.
And Harry seconded.
Yes.
So we have a motion, we have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Phase 4.
We're going back to that?
Well,
What
I
number
just
was
need,
it?
the only way I can get a cost estimate for phase 4 is if you allow us to restart the work with the change of scope, which is we have to do more work.
Yeah. We have, and this is already funded, so I would say yes, let's go ahead and, with the new scope, let's go ahead and do that.
And I can tell you in a month, I could be back in front of you and tell you what the new revised phase 4, because there's gonna be a new lots of application.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a bigger scope of work, and the costs are gonna be higher.
yeah. I'm good with that.
So by doing that, we're essentially committing to
having the Still River Greenway be along Federal Road for that portion?
Yes.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it can't go somewhere else, but we're building Phase 4 to give us that option.
Right.
If we don't do it now, it's never gonna happen. There is so much work to do to move utility poles. There's so much ledge that has to be blasted out of there. If we don't put this wider sidewalk in now, it's our one shot.
I agree with Greg. We've gone back and forth on this for the last 8 years. 8 years.
Yeah.
And I think we need to move forward. I do.
Okay.
It's not a perfect solution, but if we wanted to try to go behind Riverview and behind
That's not
Newberry
happening.
Village, we're gonna get a massive fight on our hands. And you know what? I understand the residents' feelings. I do.
I was here that night, I heard them loud and clear, that option 2 is not happening. It's just not gonna happen.
And if we wait for Tony and the Enclave, somebody in this room's gonna be dead before.
But we're gonna lose our grant.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay.
We're gonna lose the grant.
Let's do it. Where is it?
So on Phase 4, I don't know if you have to take a vote, maybe you do, but I just would like to start the rescoping of Phase 4 as I described it,
Yeah.
and come back to you in a month with the revised LOTSIP application.
Yeah, so I would make a motion that we prepare a revised LOTSIP application for Phase 4 for the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance approval to re-engineer the streetscape to run up Federal Road as described by Greg and Art in the documentation. I don't,
I'll second.
All in favor, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
further discussion?
no, it's important to discuss this. There's a lot of,
Okay, we're almost done. Last. No, Phase 4, that was, you voted on
Nope.
Phase 4,
Yeah,
right?
that was it.
Now I'd like to get to Lower Federal Road if we can, to the last slide, bottom of the page.
Number 5.
So, this project's been around for, I've been on it for at least the last 8 years. This is from BJ's all the way to Old New Milford Road. It's been, we've been in the planning, design, funding with the DOT for all that bit of time. So anyways, it's now at $8.3 million. Our next meeting, I'm sure it's gonna go up again. It's 80% federal, 20% state money. This includes 2 new signaled intersections. One just south of McDonald's, and the light that just went up last week at the intersection of Old New Milford Road and Federal. Turning lanes at the Chick-fil-A, in and out of ShopRite, that Chick-fil-A plaza. Sidewalks, sometimes on both sides of the road, sometimes on one side, sometimes on neither side. This thing's been engineered to death. And 7 bus shelters of the same design that we have in front of Poncho and Gringos in the Town Center District. This project is a safety project. The reason the state approved this project is not because of congestion into Chick-fil-A and all the people backed up at traffic lights. That's our concern. The state justified this project because of the number of accidents, car accidents. And they've got good record on this. It's basically an accident a month in front of the old ramen noodle house, on average for 3 years. So I'm happy to, hopefully when this is done, we'll see that accident rate drop, and that takes a little bit of load off of our fire and EMS services. So pre-construction started in November, my gosh, already a year ago. Demoed 2 buildings, started moving underground utilities. I think everybody in this room knows it because we travel Federal Road and you know about the lane closures. So this thing really got a lot of attention last month when Old New Milford Road was reconfigured. We did a lot of postings on social media. The police did, I did, Tara did, and others. And I'm doing my best to keep the public notified in those forums and on the changes that are coming. This is a state project, not a town project. Things happen at their pace, at their rate. It's nothing that we control. This project's going to go on for another year. So in the fall of '23, it's all going to be done, and we're going to love it. Now, with that, this board may recall that we named a new road called Wagon Wheel Way. It was going to be that short dead end to the Landmark building. And when I sent a post out about 2 weeks ago, the 6 or 8 condo owners in the Landmark building called and said, "What? I've got to go back and change all my stationery. These are medical practices, dentists. I have to go back to all my patients, all my insurance carriers. I've got to have a new mailing address." How come nobody told me? Well, we
Did have a public meeting on it.
We had a public meeting, and we involved the developer of that
Yeah,
property.
the owner of that
The owner of that property, and he was at every meeting with us when these
Yeah.
decisions were made. The word never got to the 6 or 8 condo owners,
There's actually 18 businesses in that
18
building.
businesses, and I think 8, maybe they're not all condo owners, some may be tenants. So anyways, I went to the state and I said, you're gonna cover for all these costs, for all these businesses, right? They said, no, we're not gonna do that. So, basically, when I passed that word back to the one business owner who represents a group of them, because they were talking about this, he asked, is there any way that the town can rescind its decision and just not rename that little dead-end stretch Wagon Wheel Way? It was a fun idea. It would have kept a little bit of the history.
It'll be named what?
Pardon me?
It'll be Old New Milford
It'll
Road?
still be Old New Milford Road. They don't want to have any change of address.
I'm fine with that.
So,
Good.
Sorry, I'm fine.
All right.
I mean, later on, if we wanted to, my thought was, later on, if we wanted to, the road will stay the same, but that little elbow going, if we wanted to name that
yeah.
Wagon Wheel Way, we could always do that, just, I mean, I think it would be nice.
In our spare time, we'll come
Yeah.
back to that.
There's no property address on that little stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But if there's an accident at that light, what's the intersection? What's that intersection gonna be called? It might be Old New Milford Road Extension.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
that, for
They'll
that
just
150
call it the
feet.
Laval's Light or
Yeah.
something. Everyone knows what it is.
But if we give it a formal road name, that's gotta go through.
yeah, that
GIS,
was just
and
a thought.
That's a
I
bigger
agree
deal.
with you. No, it was a great idea, I think, originally, to name it Wagon Wheel Way. It was suggested by our chief of police.
Yeah.
Because of Lavelle's Wagon Wheel, which
Yeah.
was there for what, 60 years?
So if I can,
But-
please get a motion
Yeah.
to rescind that. I think it'd be greatly appreciated.
I'll make a motion to rescind the Wagon Wheel Way.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lastly, Phase 5, sorry, just when you thought we were done. Jenny, bottom of the page, sorry. This is just a quickie, no action required.
Oh, good.
Phase 5, this goes now from Angelo's Dry Cleaners all the way to the new grocery store. So that project is on hold, and it's still on hold. And it's gonna be on hold until that development has their DOT-approved traffic light improvements design approved. Because our sidewalk that's gonna come from Brookfield Dry Cleaners to that intersection, to the new grocery store, it's all gotta be designed the same. So we're waiting and waiting. Tony Lucero told us last week, he's expecting that any time now.
Didn't he say that a year ago?
I've been hearing that for about a year. But now we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and if we get his design by the end of the year, we are hopeful to get this thing done by next fall, but I'm not holding my breath. So that's Phase 5.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep. Sorry it took so long.
I would like to maybe recommend we amend the agenda, take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, that's probably good. I will second that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Be back, please, if you're so inclined, at 8:37.
You get it all?
I don't know.
Because I put them up on the desk. Leave them up here then? Yeah. I'm not staying for the rest. I met with the,
So I think that he ultimately trying to is that they're just, they want it just now. And I said, he said he could get it from his ARPA money, so he wouldn't need it from phase 6 anymore.
Right, so I think the question is, what would the ARPA money approved?
So we're reviewing,
Yeah, if it was approved for essentially what he's looking for, you don't need anything, you're good to
correct.
go.
I think he's good to go.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds, because it's, I mean, it's not, I mean, I guess, if there wasn't any approval, then you, and you cannot use that fund, clearly says, phase 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not gonna work. So then, it would have to be special appropriation, and I'm looking at what type of special appropriation that would be, it's like, great, we're gonna have town meeting.
I was thinking of asking what's her name, the Board of Ed, just, what
But he thinks we fit it in.
Huh? Andy just sent me the link on it.
No, I say, what's her name? I
It's
can't
called an
remember.
Attitudes and Behavior Survey or something, and they sent out this email. It says Brookfield Cares in collaboration with the schools,
I'm wondering exactly what the
grades 7 through 12.
approval was for the
It doesn't say anything about what's included. Harry, the questions are disgusting.
Yeah.
Look, look. I took pictures of the screen.
Something like that.
Right here. It's against my values to have sex.
Yeah.
Ugh,
I
what?
would like to ask this one here, the board member here, was the board aware of this, that they sent this out? And were they aware of what's on it?
Look. Have you ever had sexual intercourse or gone all the way or made love?
Yeah, it's
They're
ridiculous.
11.
I'm
11.
gonna call John tomorrow. Find out.
11. Okay. Is it
Is
time?
that clear enough about how I feel? Okay.
Okay.
Now that we're 5% through the agenda.
Thank you for allowing a brief break there. Moving on to agenda item number 5. The announcements, we'll be having our coffee with the community on the 26th of November from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I just wanted to stress our coffees now are from 9 to 10. It's been voted on, it's been advertised. That is the time. We'll be at the Brookfield Market across from the Craft Center. On Thursday night of this week, the 10th at 5 o'clock here at the Town Hall, we will be having finally our awaited honor wall unveiling. The Brookfield High School Chorus will be there to sing. The Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts will be facilitating the pledge and hosting refreshments at the end, and the Connecticut National Guard will be there as well. We're going to be having them fold an American flag that was donated by the family of Jason Lewis, who was one of our Navy SEALs from Brookfield, who's KIA. So all are invited. It's going to be a lovely little event, and it will just really warm up our lobby and pay tribute to those who've served and continue to serve, I should say. HRRA will be hosting a hazardous waste drop-off at the high school this Saturday, the 12th, from 9 to 2. The town website has the details on that event. The Red Cross delivered a clothing bin that is now placed in the same location as our glass recycling bin, and they'll be emptying it, I think, on a bi-weekly basis. So if anybody has clothing or shoes, blankets, things of that sort to contribute to the Red Cross, that's a great place to drop it off.
And again, I can't stress this enough, we still have vacancies across our boards and commissions in town, to include the Board of Assessment Appeals, our Commission on Aging. Oh, that was filled today though, right? Are we full now on the commission?
I think
Yeah.
so.
We'll come to that later. Inland Wetlands still has a vacancy, the MBC and WPCA. As we all know, our town is made up of volunteers, and they really are the ones who keep the machine well oiled. So if you know anyone who's sitting around with a little bit extra time on their hands, volunteering's a great way to keep town moving forward.
If you are going to put in a bio or to either the DTC, the RTC, please make sure that we get them so that we have time to take a look through them before our next meeting.
Our correspondence, we received one letter. And over to Marcia for our financial update.
All right, you received the budget to actual for revenue and expenditures through October 31st. That we have more revenue than what we had budgeted for. That there have been several large development fees over and above what was in the budget. At the time of the budget, it was unclear if they would be coming in this year or next year. We have, for the first time, a municipal revenue sharing grant that CCM had told us not to put it in the budget because they've never actually funded it. And even up till last month, nobody knew if it would be funded. Normally, we would have lost this grant this year because our budget increased more than 2.5%, or the cost of living, but there was a special exception for this year. So we did receive a grant for $336,000 that we were not expecting. The motor vehicle grant we did not receive. It was in the budget from the state. We passed our budget before the state's final budget, so they kind of offset each other a little bit in our favor. We work hard on these FEMA grants. We've got $143,000 now all obligated for Storm Ida. Remaining for what we didn't get last year. The vaccine grant, we've have $53,000 coming to the general fund. We have applied for a reopening grant that we're in our final stages. Hopefully that gets approved for $558,000 to cover costs there, but it's not obligated yet. And then interest, when we were preparing the budget, the interest rate was 0.1%, and now it's 3.76%. That is a 3,000% increase. We did put in an extra $200,000 in the budget, thinking that we didn't want to underestimate revenue, and 3,000% increase kind of smashed through that 200,000. So we're getting significantly more interest than what we had expected. One, because of the interest rate, and two, because of the school. It's slowed down some. We're not spending at the same burn rate as what we had expected in the budget, so we have more school money. Hopefully the interest rate will be a continuing thing, but the extra cash will not be a continuing thing.
Are we looking at the interest rate risk arbitrage of investing the money from the school versus?
We are, and we're fine. We as long as we're spending it, and that's the 3-year thing, as it goes
Okay.
into the arbitrage.
Want to make sure.
Yep, we are still fine. So that's revenue. The expenditures, unfortunately, we're also over budget. We've got some significant variances on the town side that will more or less offset themselves up until about $25,000 right now. We usually do our budget transfers after meeting with all the departments again in December for your January meeting. And right now there's some pluses and minuses that we're still trying to work through. The Board of Ed is right now looking as though they'll need more money, a significant amount more money. But we'll be working through that for the January meeting transfers. There is one transfer that's an intra-department transfer that we're requesting for tonight, and that is to have some extra clerical help in the building department, and that is offset with cuts in other departments in the land use, that if you would consider that. Any questions on any of that?
Where is that 3,000 on here, Marcia?
It is in the expenditures that on the third page in, that it would be interim wages or seasonal sporadic wages for 3,000. It would be coming from union wages that we had a vacancy, that we should have $600 extra there. 1,100 would be coming from legal notice and advertising that Rochelle, the new director, has really done a nice job in cutting back the ads in the paper. That should save us enough to get $1,100 out of there. Office supplies for $1,080, and $100 from forms and printing on page 4, and $120 from travel and conferences. Going all, that adds up to the 3,000.
So if I can just add to that, the building department is completely overwhelmed, and it seems that every day there's 20 more people who pull a permit to do work on their house or put in a pool or whatever the case may be, but their uptick has just been incredible, and it's not sustainable without extra help in that department. And it's not just, you know, there's a lot of back and forth between a resident and Lori, who's doing all the office work herself. So that $3,000 would carry us with a part-timer through the new year, but then that's just a short-term Band-Aid. We need to think about building some permanent part-time help back into the budget in the spring. Sorry, did you have anything else?
That's all I have.
Do you guys have any questions about that intra-department transfer of $3,000?
On that, no, it's inter-department. They're still within budget, so.
I can tell you that we're looking at putting a garage on getting a building permit, and it's tough going, you know, because they've got so much going on, so I can second that.
Okay, so the motion was to have an interdepartment transfer of $3,000 to the building department.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Just as outlined in the budget report where the funding is coming from.
Fair enough. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And you were done, Marcia.
Unless you've got questions.
Anybody?
I'm fine.
How firm are the Board of Ed numbers?
They're not, that they always give updates every month, but they're not ready to ask for more money yet. And we do have 391,000 of a contingency that can offset something.
Okay, thank you.
So moving to number 6, I'd like to make a motion to add fuel as part of our conversation for this evening.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Direct your attention to the 3-slide handout that Jules so graciously prepared for us. I just wanted to make sure that we're having this conversation, looking at this snapshot in time. Obviously, none of us are in the commodities business, so it's hard to tell what's going to happen here with fuel. And that, that includes heating oil, diesel. The propane has already been locked in, and then obviously gasoline. We don't use any biofuels here, so looking at this first slide, number 2, fuel oil, this is the name of our heating oil. And then diesel on the chart, and gasoline, and then of course the propane. You can see what we've budgeted. The rack price or the spot price is the daily price, and this number is as of the 1st of November. And then the last column is if we lock it in until the end of the fiscal year, what we would be paying. If you look at the chart where you see the overage, our contract expired last June, on June 30th. At the time, the rate was $3.78, and today we're looking at 4.263. And then it's fluctuated between July and now. There were 2 points in time where it dipped. One of those was on September 23rd, which happened to be a Friday, and by the time we came in on Tuesday, it had already started to creep back up. So as far as locking oil, diesel, and gas, I've been patient. Patience has been my tactic. Whether or not that's the best decision, you know, would it have been a blessing to have locked it in on the 23rd of September? Absolutely, but I didn't, right? So here we are, and we're not alone in this. There's plenty of towns across the state who haven't locked. I talked to Dan Rosenthal in Newtown on Friday. They're practicing patience as well. So I kind of wanted to gauge what you gentlemen think about this, because again, none of us are commodities experts.
What's the consortium rate? I don't,
That we won't know until it goes out to bid in December. But for the gas, we did lock in, and we're joining the consortium for gas in January. And another option is to lock, or to join the consortium for oil and diesel in May for the new fiscal year. So if we didn't lock today, we would be looking to for an additional $561,000 for oil and diesel. If we lock today, we would be looking for an additional $412K. So it's a difference of $149K, all things considered, if the rates remain the same.
Well, if we lock in now and it goes way up, then we're heroes. If we don't lock in now and it goes way up, then we're the GOAT. So my question to Marcia is it, for us moving forward with other purchases or whatever, as far as financially, is it better for us to lock in saving the $100,000 now, in your opinion, or is it still a crapshoot?
It's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
The good part about locking in is that we at least know the target that we're shooting for, and it's a fixed target. The bad is if it goes down, that we've made the wrong decision. And the other concern that we heard, because we've talked with Mitchell Oil, the expert there, the concern also is, would we have oil available that if we don't lock in, that usually when we lock in and we call and say we want 125,000 gallons, for the Board of Ed, for example, they call their supplier and say, we need 125,000. This year they're finding that they may have to call 3 different suppliers and get 25 here, 50 here, and 50 there. So it is a crapshoot.
So there is a possibility of oil shortage. If we lock in, we would be guaranteed to get the amount that. Is that true?
Oil and diesel, that although, you know, we're just hearing last week on the news, they were saying that the superintendent was saying that even if you have locked in with diesel, you may still have a problem But that's not what we heard a month or so ago from Mitchell.
Has any consideration be given to kind of hedging our bets and locking in part of this? And letting that part of it float?
How would that, how would,
I mean,
Well, you're locking in a price, say, for half of our remaining need for
Oh,
the
okay.
fiscal year, and then let the other half float. I don't, it's a difficult one.
right.
So we're just.
Have we done any risk analysis? Let's say this goes up 20%, 30%, what it could cost the town? So we're prepared in the worst-case scenario?
We could multiply it out easy enough. Every 2 weeks, we've been getting the data and multiplying it by,
No, I'm sorry. I mean, have we looked at this, okay, we need 400,000 gallons of fuel. The worst is $6 a gallon, that's 2.4 million. That's probably, we think, the absolute maximum we would have to pay. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. We haven't, because we don't know the absolute maximum, that trying to look at some of these numbers and trying to look at what the government puts out, that it looks like it's high right now and that it should be coming down in 2023, but even they say, well, that if this happens, it will come down, but then if this happens, it will go up, so they're really no help.
And even if we lock and there's no supply, we're not gonna have any, so.
In theory, if we lock, we should have supply. It was just one news article that we were hearing about saying the opposite.
Yeah, if we lock, let's say with Mitchell is gonna go out and lock in their rate right now, and they're gonna buy that right now and get that commitment. So their suppliers would have to fail.
Yeah.
It's if you're not locked, and it comes 6 months from now and there's shortage, they are gonna fill their locked clients first, the ones they have contracts with, not the spot people. That's where you could really run into trouble.
not that I make decisions on what other people are doing, but do we have a feel about the surrounding towns? Who's locking, who's not locking?
New Fairfield and Newtown have not. Their spot. I think everybody's hoping for the best, but at what point?
So Marcia, if we don't lock in, would it be possible for us to set what we would feel would be a rise and, if it does go up, of course, obviously we don't know how much it's gonna go up, but is there a certain level to where we would, where it would really be detrimental or crippling?
We just don't know. That looking at the graphs that, again, the government provided, there's updates coming out tomorrow, that, but what they provided in October, they seem to think that this is about the highest. But then they say, unless such and such happens, and so they're not committing, they're not any help.
I mean, this also, this could also be a new baseline for pricing. So I'd be afraid that if we don't lock, it's only gonna go up. I don't see it coming down. So what would you find gentlemen like to do about this one?
Drop 10 and punt.
My, not a motion, but my recommendation based off of what I know to this point and the fine work that Marcia and Jules have been doing and providing me with is to lock diesel and oil through to the end of this fiscal year and then join the consortium. We're already committed to the consortium for gasoline in January and
Our
propane's taken
fiscal
care
year
of.
or December?
Our fiscal calendar year.
Yeah.
I think the risk that we take of it going down would be minimal compared to the damage if we don't lock and it spikes. So I agree with you that I think we should lock, because even if it does come down a little bit, the risk of what could happen if it goes up, I think is greater.
We're foregoing a possible drop
Right,
to lock in a number that we know.
right.
I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm not happy, but
Another
I
idea
would
would be to
prefer to do that.
just maintain patience to see if any, over the next week or so, 2 weeks, I mean, I don't know with tomorrow looming, if that's gonna make a difference, I don't know.
You can sit here, it's like playing the stock market. You can make guesses of where this is gonna go all day long, and 99% of people are gonna be wrong, and the other 1% will be wrong next week. So, my personal opinion is, we have to protect the town, lock in, we're not happy. We may forego some savings if it goes down, but, okay, but at least we don't have that. If it went up $2 a gallon, we're gonna get killed on the Board of Ed. And who knows with these markets?
And if all things stayed the same today for spot pricing, we'd be looking for another 150,000 on top,
Yeah.
so.
I think it is the wiser decision to lock in when you look at the entire picture. We can't look at, well, we might have saved 3 or 4 cents on a gallon. If we hold out, there's just too much risk.
And just to be clear on the gas, we'd be paying daily rate through the end of this calendar year. But that came down since October, so. I'm sorry, it went up. Wrong one.
I'm ready to vote.
But oil and diesel came down since October. Okay.
Well, by joining the consortium, they're not gonna lock a rate for us, right? We're just buying it whatever they get it for.
Well, we go out to bid in December for the gas.
Okay, all right. So it's not a rolling,
But because it's, there's 37 other towns as
Yeah.
part of that, they're all varying size, these towns, so
Yeah.
the bid is based on all the volumes.
right, right.
And it will be locked in, so it appears that it locks in on a calendar year because this time of year gas is cheaper than on a fiscal year. And so next year we'll have a fixed amount for the first 6 months, and we'll just have to estimate the second 6 months in our budget.
Right, okay.
So, take it to vote?
No.
All
Yes.
right. I'd like to make a motion that we lock in our rates for oil and diesel through the end of this fiscal year.
I will second that.
Any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Please let this be the right thing.
You gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And I think this is a good time to take a guarded approach rather than roll the dice.
And just for the record, the price as of November 1st was 4.829 for oil and 4.95 for diesel. Ugh. But the price if we lock, which we're going to do, should be somewhere around 4.2 and 4.1. Silver linings. Okay, thank you. And then there's the last bullet on the third slide about the electricity, which I don't know if you all want to talk about, but again, everything is very turbulent right now. Any questions on electricity?
No.
No.
All right, moving on. Thank you for that. The Siting Council, on the 3rd of November, there was a public hearing where they allowed for the public to comment, and I just wanted to read into the record my remarks for the evening, because this pending cell tower is something I think that warrants the attention of the town, which is why I'm bringing it here tonight, so that everybody's aware that the Siting Council did happen. It was advertised on our website. I put it on social media, as well as I think the Spotlight had it. But I think there's now 30 days since the 3rd, for written correspondence to the council, and I just wanted to share what I read that evening. Good evening, my name is Tara Carr. I'm the first select woman of Brookfield. This 60 Vale Road tower proposal is one rooted in providing a convenience, faster Wi-Fi, and increased personal cell phone coverage rather than necessity. True, there are parts of Brookfield where cell phone coverage is degraded depending on service provider, but I am not in favor of a tower that will ultimately host technology that produces an additional overlay of various microwave radiation frequencies and wavelengths of pulse-modulated microwave radiation. I cannot support this effort, knowing there is no conclusive evidence suggesting that radiation technology is not harmful to human health and wildlife, and therefore no evidence suggesting it would not be harmful to the residents of Brookfield and our environment. Again, I cannot in good conscience support anything that could possibly harm our people, our animals, including bees, cows, and horses, for example. As the effects of radiation are still under study, I propose we wait for conclusive research as to the existence of or absence of harmful effects. One of my primary responsibilities, which I consider my duty and obligation, is to ensure the protection of life and property of our community. Just last year, the Federal Communications Commission was challenged by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit because there were no definitive answers on environmental harm and dangerous exposure to children. The FCC was remanded, and they must address the points ordered by the court. I urge that we wait until we know with 100% certainty that our residents will be safe. Regarding Brookfield's emergency communication systems upgrade approved at our town referendum last spring, it is a fact that we need a structure to house our new equipment, facilitating moving from our 1986 analog to a digital system, but our new equipment is not 3.5 gigahertz power dependent. To be very clear, we do need a structure for our new communication system. However, I would definitely prefer our new equipment not be coupled with additional cellular antennas or any other potentially harmful devices. I do not support this tower because I do not support C-band frequency, which is also referred to as 5G by the manufacturers, at any location in our town. We already have high microwave emissions throughout our town, which could have long-term implications from towers and small wireless telecommunications facilities and antennas in Brookfield as it is. I urge you to consider carefully the overwhelming facts, substantial written evidence of possible harmful effects, and that there is no significant gap in service available to wireless telecommunication services for the residents of our fine town. The cell tower proposed is close to residential neighborhoods and daycare facilities, potentially threatening their health. Ultimately, we need to ask ourselves, is more connectivity really worth the potential chronic health problems possibly associated with powerful 24/7 EMF radiation? Thank you for the opportunity to comment. And I also sent that into the Siting Council certified mail. So, again, the next steps for the town and the public would be to submit their written correspondence to the Siting Council. And I think we as a board and potentially our zoning board need to consider a moratorium, which other towns across the state of Connecticut have done. And I'm open for conversation on any of that.
I have to say, I disagree with almost every single thing that you said. There's been no proof that 5G is harmful to people. If you look at the incidence of every disease where wireless providers are providing service, there's been no increase in any disease, cancer, and now we've had towers out there for 30 years now. Cancer has not gone up. Leukemia has not gone up. Anything that you look at has not gone up. So, you know, you say there's been no proof that these aren't harmful. There's been no proof that they are harmful.
Well, right, the evidence is inconclusive, which is why I suggest we wait. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a health expert, I'm not an engineer or a scientist, so
Yeah.
I'm just
Well,
sharing what.
I did get a scientist to look at this, Jack Gludwig, who's a graduate with a PhD from MIT, incredibly smart man, sits on our municipal building committee, and he looked at it when 5G first came out 4 or 5 years ago when they were looking to add it to the towers here. And he did a pretty exhaustive study of this, and he is one smart cookie, and he knows this stuff.
So
And he
why
said,
didn't you
"Steve, there
approve
is
the
no-
tower?
There is no harmful effects that can be evidenced by fact from these networks. There
Okay,
just isn't.
So why wasn't the tower approved on town property to create revenue for the town last year?
Because I didn't want to put it there. We have so little space at the municipal parking, I'm sorry, the public service space, if anybody's been down there. We have absolutely no space. We could probably use twice the space, right?
So you would be opposed to a moratorium on the tower till we learn more about any effects, harmful or positive?
Well, one, I don't think we can implement a moratorium because towns cannot stop the siting council from approving a tower. The siting council has all control over it. We can pass all the moratoriums we want. We do not have any ability to stop a tower from going in, except the power of suasion. As you spoke to the siting council and gave them your opinion, other people do the same thing, both pro and negative, but it's the siting council's final decision. I know we have the people who come in, and they've been coming in for 4 years, very concerned about 5G, and they're asking us to stop it. This town has virtually zero capability to stop it. They need to go to the FCC, they need to go to their senators, they need to go to their congressmen, they need to go to the state, they need to go to the siting council, because they hold all the power. The town has virtually no say in whether this tower will get put up or not. No say.
So you support the tower?
I don't have an opinion either way right now. I'm just saying the town has no say. We can discuss it, and we can pass moratoriums, and we can waste time passing ordinances. They will not be effective because we do not have the ability to affect this.
Well, we
Now-
haven't tried.
Yeah, go to Steve Harding, go to Craig Minor, go to your legislators, right? And have them change the rules for the Connecticut Siting Council. And at the same time, go to your congressmen and your senators and get them to change the rules for the FCC. That's who allows 5G, and the Connecticut Siting Council allows where the towers go.
As far as the new communication center, there are capabilities of being able to service that properly without 5G, is that correct?
I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's true.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's true. I'm not
The last
exactly sure.
time I spoke to the chief of the fire department and the chief of the police department, they both were in favor of getting a new tower because they wanted it for their new communication system.
But why do we need AT&T's tower if we just need a structure to put our new equipment on?
You want to spend $4 or $5 million to build a tower just for our police when we can simply hook onto somebody else's tower like we do right here, back here on town property? It costs us very little to hook onto that. All we do is attach our equipment to their tower,
Well,
and they allow us to do that. If we wanted to build our own tower, it would be in the millions of dollars.
we could be here all night arguing it. I just wanted to share where I stand on the issue
Sure.
and that the town is aware of what I said at the siting council to be 100% transparent.
That's fine. Okay.
And as we well know, because we've sat here side by side through many meetings where I haven't heard a single resident for the tower. I've heard plenty who are against. So,
I would like to ask the police and fire why they would object to not having, I believe that the 5G is basically for cell service. So I know that when I go through that corridor, sometimes I either lose it or whatever. All I gotta do is wait for 30 seconds till I'm.
you probably have AT&T.
I do have AT&T.
That's why.
But my
Verizon,
point is, if we can
T-Mobile.
have the communications up and running and functioning without the 5G, I would certainly be in favor of that and not have to have the 5G. Just drive another 30 yards or another 30 seconds or don't use AT&T. That's my opinion.
we can go back and forth 600 times, but I suggest we do get the chief of police and the chiefs of the fire department in here, because they do need, there are dead spots in this town. And they've been very clear that they are in support of this tower, regardless of the 5G, regardless of that. And anything we can do to support our fire and police. I don't want a policeman or a fireman stuck in a building not being able to communicate with headquarters or with other firemen or police.
But if there is a system that can work without 5G, they would be able to. You wouldn't necessarily.
Our communication
The
system,
question is the tower. You need the tower for the police and fire communications.
and our
Right.
system is not reliant on wireless
No, it's
capability,
not.
although they do use
It's
it.
relying on the towers. You have to have the tower, regardless of what's on
We
that
don't
tower.
need AT&T's tower. We could do our own tower.
If you're willing to spend a couple $1 million to build a tower, yeah, sure. When you can spend $50,000 to hook onto somebody else's tower, or you can spend $2 million to build your own tower.
And radiate all of our residents in the meantime. There's already 10 towers in town, not to mention all the small cell towers that are out there. Look on your telephone poles. It's coming right into your house. But that's a personal decision on whether or not you think it's healthy, I guess. Okay. 7B, center school repurposing. Put this on here because this is another conversation that we need to have. I'm just trying to figure out where we are in the story relating to what the plans are coming out of the ad hoc committee's findings and the library study, the $30,000 that was committed. The school will be vacated next August, and then we have to decide what to do with it, right? Are we gonna have it sit vacant? Are we gonna occupy it in some fashion? Are we gonna tear it down and build a library?
Well, we're still waiting for the final report.
I spoke with Christina today, and just asked her how things were going. And it sounded like they are, if it's not completed, it's near completion as far as the study. They're
it's
still
very
going over
close.
everything. So I had asked her if it would be possible at our next meeting for someone to come to the Board of Selectmen and just give us an update of where they are, what
Yeah.
some of the findings
Give us
were.
a presentation on what their consultant has said.
Right,
Right. I know they've been doing a lot of work.
right.
So
And then
when will that be? Invite them for December?
for December, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Well, we have to do it because budget's
Right.
coming, and depending on which way we go, we may need
Well,
$500,000
along those lines-
to upgrade the building, or
Along those lines, we're also talking about the new
30
school.
million for a new library.
And there's a lot of delays with the flooring, right? So are we gonna be able to move these kids out
The
by
school,
next September?
that's what we're being told, yes.
Hmm.
The plan now is for
I
over
see- I see
spring
people in the
break.
audience nodding yes. I hope so. There's been so many supply chain issues. We should plan, be prepared. Well, we'll have a better idea in January, February of where we're gonna be.
Well,
That's
if Huckleberry isn't being torn down over spring break, then it's not gonna be torn down until the summer, and then
Right.
we're not gonna have enough time to tear it down by the time school
The parking
starts,
lot,
right?
Right. There's a lot of dominoes here. Okay.
Well, I think it would just be beneficial.
Yeah, let's have them come in.
Let them come in,
Okay.
tell us what they found or didn't find, and
All right, great, moving
then we
on.
can talk about what we're gonna do.
Betsy, we can't, at the end, though, you can have Betsy wants to make a comment.
Oh.
But she can't do it until, if you can make a comment at the end, then we'll go back to the subject. Is that okay?
So why
I
can't
mean, we
she-
typically
why
don't
can't-
have,
Well, usually we don't allow back and forth with the audience.
but we have not had public comment at the end.
We could add public comment to the end, we could,
Oh, we can add public comment right now.
right,
I make a motion, we add public comment right now.
I'll second it.
You gonna say all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, but anybody want to make a public comment?
I didn't vote yes.
That was 2 to 1 on that one.
So just so everybody, so the public understands.
no, don't say
in order to
everybody,
keep the
'cause I didn't
meetings
vote
moving,
yes.
we can't have a back and forth with the audience on a continual basis. It gets very difficult.
I don't think, actually, we don't even need a public comment. I mean, she's just gonna make a
Yeah,
comment.
go ahead.
Yeah, Betsy McIlvain, 127 Long Meadow Hill. I'm vice chairman of the library board, and I really think The only comment I have right now is, yes, we are working with the architect, but we need to come to terms with, this is not just a library project. This is very much also involving the Parks and Recreation
Thank you.
Department and their
Yes.
programs. So that when we talk about this, we talk about everybody who is involved.
Yeah, and I didn't add, yes,
Yeah.
thank you for, yes, pointing that out.
That's a very good
And-
clarification.
Yes,
It
it
is to look at both.
Yes, and that came out of the Center School reuse
Right.
report also. So
Right.
that's where we are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we probably should have made that
Right.
clarification
Sorry,
ourselves.
I was thinking it and I didn't say, I
Yeah.
just said library study, but thank you, Betsy. Okay, so we look forward to hearing from them potentially in December. 8, Alpha through Echo. I'd like to make a motion that we approve these items on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I have none.
Not for me.
I would just like to add a big welcome to our new hires. Any further discussion?
No.
All in
May-
favor? Go ahead.
Maybe we should just do, Terrace, maybe just mention the 4, the new, the new.
Sure.
the,
Amy Curran in the land use office, Sean Duffy, who is an assistant sanitarian part-time, Chloe Landesman, who's a circulation assistant part-time at the library, and Kelly Omen, who's a full-time dispatcher.
Okay.
Yeah. Moving on, oh, did we finalize that?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 9 Alpha. Our appointments. The Capital Planning Ad Hoc Committee was tabled from last month, and we solidified who the members would be. If you could take a look at that list. Ricky Ramos, Ryan Urdanis, Brianna Ruocco, Robert Belden, Joy Greenstein. 3 Republicans, 1 Democrat, and 1 unaffiliated. And the note there that Bob Belden would be the chair of the Capital Committee was written in error. I think we should leave it up to the committee to decide who the chair will be.
Yeah, Ricky had previously done it, but he doesn't
Yeah.
want to do it anymore.
Right.
I think it should be somebody from the Board of Finance, though. so there's
Well,
no-
I would like to make the comment, and this is, I think all of the members are gonna be assets. I'm happy with every one of them. But for perception and just for procedure, I don't think that it should be a chair of another board or commission.
I agree.
Just simply so that there isn't people possibly saying there's favoritism or leaning towards.
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. So I would, charge the committee to nominate and elect a chair who is not currently a chair or, chair or vice chair of-
Yeah.
of another board or committee. And that's just,
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to make the motion, Harry?
You said term of office to be discussed?
Oh, yes, thank you for pointing that out.
Probably should go August to August, right? Typically?
So it depends on how we look at
But if
that,
we put-
because if they're looking at the capital expenditure plans for the next budget year,
Right.
does that end after the referendum? Because then after the
Yeah, it
referendum,
does.
they're gonna start working on the next cycle.
Right. You can pretty much do it from any time period. You just want to make sure they're in place by end of September, October, so they can start.
Right. Yeah.
so what are we looking for terms?
Mm.
I would say we appoint them tonight through next August, right? And then take it up next August. Will give us time, if we need to change members, add members, people drop, gives us time to do that.
Okay.
Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's reasonable. I do want to emphasize that the 10-year capital plan is going to be really important to
Oh, yeah.
look at, in addition to just any capital projects that are proposed. I was part I was a very intimate part of these conversations in the last budget cycle, and the plan just kind of fell to the wayside because we were going through so much of the proposals, right?
Well, yeah, but that would be, you would put together the 10-year capital plan for them to review. That's what I did. You know, every year you update it, go to each department, get the changes, get the, I need this piece of equipment, I don't need that, this is going up in price, and put together that 10-year plan, and then create next year's capital plan, taking that into effect, right, into consideration.
But a part of the charge here is to review the 10-year capital
Yeah.
plan, and I'm just suggesting that in the last
Yeah.
round, we didn't necessarily get to that as much as I had hoped because
Okay, I
we were
agree with
bogged
that.
down in so much else.
I agree with that. Okay.
Okay, so I will make a recommended motion that the selectmen appoint the following to the Capital Planning Ad Hoc Committee, term being tonight through August 23, with the charge to review the capital expenditure plans for the 23-24 budget year and make recommendations to the Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance on which projects should be included in the 2022-23 budget, and review the 10-year capital plan to coordinate.
Oh, I'm sorry, that should be 23-24 budget.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just reading here, not thinking. 23-24 budget, and review the 10-year capital plan to coordinate future capital spending plans, and also we charge them to elect a chairman, and that person would not be a chair or vice chair of a board or committee.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And moving on with appointments, yeah.
I'm sorry, I have one question. And Steve, I don't know, maybe you can answer. We do not have any of the Board of Selectmen here. If we were to attend a meeting, would we be part of the conversation, or would we be?
The first selectman is a member of every
Oh,
board.
okay, okay.
So she can sit in
I'll
on
be at
any,
every one of those meetings.
Okay, okay.
With a smile.
you know, by
Yeah.
our charter, she
Right.
sits on every
Okay,
board.
I forgot about that, okay.
So it came to my attention that there was no deputy zoning enforcement officer appointed. So the zoning board, I believe, preliminarily appointed our land use director, Rochelle Hadza, as the deputy. So I'd like to finalize that
And she's okay with it?
recommendation. Yes, absolutely. And there's been times when Fran Lawley's been out and she's
Yeah,
been
yeah,
called
yeah.
to other things. I mean, it's necessary. We need this in place. So I'd like to make the motion that we, as a Board of Selectmen, appoint Rochelle Hadza as our Deputy Zoning Enforcement Officer for a term of tonight through the 6th of February, 2024.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We had two recommendations for new members to the Arts Commission. One is Patrice Young, a Republican, and the other is Tara Peterson, a Democrat. I'd like to make a motion that we appoint these residents as members of the Arts Commission starting tonight for a term through the 5th of February, 2024, as recommended by both the RTC and DTC.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we need to move on to Parks and Rec. We have recommendations of a Cassie Dunn and a Kylie DiArcangelo to be, I'll start with Cassie, that we approve her appointment from alternate to regular member from tonight through the 2nd of February 2026. And that we approve the appointment of Kylie DiArcangelo as an alternate
same term.
To a regular member?
No, alternate.
No, alternate.
Oh, as an alternate, appoint her as an alternate, yes. From tonight through the 5th of February 2024.
I'll second that.
I'll second that. Just one question. Why is one 2/2/26 and one is 2/5/24?
Those were the here's the list of the
Oh, who they're
original
replacing. Okay.
terms of the people
Okay.
they're replacing.
Okay.
I have no discussion.
And for those who have resigned and moved on, I just wanted to thank them. I know that Joy Grudzinski was there for many, many years, and she did a great job.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will recuse myself because it's my wife.
And please
I
thank
will
her.
say aye to Kylie D'Arcangelo.
Gotcha. Oh, I'm sorry, I do have an alibi here. I'd like to make a motion to add an appointment to the Commission on Aging.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Can I get a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Second.
The motion would be to add the appointment of Astrid Chiavelli, a Democrat, to the Commission on Aging for a term of today, the 7th of November 2022, through the 5th of February 2024, to fill the alternate member vacancy. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Astrid. And a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Was that our record for longest meeting so far?
Close, if not, yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jimmy. One more, Jimmy. One more. Good night.
Have a nice holiday if I don't see you. Thanksgiving's coming up, right? Supposed to get a cold snap this week. It's gonna be 32.
Thunderstorm. No wonder my sinuses can't keep up with all this nonsense. I'm getting killed. It's been 2 months. I can barely hear it.
I have some reason last year I developed an allergy in the fall. I never had it before. I mean, my eyes run, my
Board of Ed. It's the Board of Ed. Take it to the Board of Ed. There was an email that was sent out, apparently, that said the survey was coming, but it didn't say what the survey included.
Guys like,
I
oh no,
literally
it's just
walked
red.
in, my
You don't
kids
have
were like,
infections.
you're never gonna believe
Then
it.
the allergies kind of
We
went
were
up.
asked
I
in
didn't
school.
feel great, but I let it go, let it go.
I mean, I went home to grab a bite to eat to kiss my children and turn around and come back here and I was like, what? And then I walked into this building. I'm not gonna sit here and say nothing.
And they said it's great for allergies, but primarily for people who have